The music feels almost too soft for what was coming through just now, because this person is not feeling soft things about you. I mean, emotionally, yes, weirdly sentimental, actually, but physically? Oh my god, okay. Anyway, this doesn't feel like a love letter. It feels more like I accidentally tuned into somebody thinking about you when they thought nobody could hear them. And what's strange is that this person seems very controlled, normally, very put together. They're used to knowing what they want, knowing how to get it, knowing what to say. You have completely messed that up. I'm also not totally sure how close you are to them yet. Some of you know exactly who this is. For others, they may know you through work, online, mutual circles, somewhere they see you repeatedly. But they definitely feel like they've observed you enough to create this whole version of you in their mind. And then you keep proving that version incomplete. Wait, let me just read what I'm getting, because this is, I don't know how to impress you without making you think I'm trying to impress you. That sounds ridiculous. But you notice everything. I'm used to people responding to what I have, what I can provide, where I can take them. You don't seem moved by any of it. You look at me like you're trying to figure out who I am underneath all of that. And I want to touch you so badly. Not even, okay, yes, that too, obviously. But I keep imagining your hand in mine, your fingers, what you would do if I stood closer than usual. Whether you'd move away or look at me like you already knew exactly what I was thinking. Do you know what you do to people when you go quiet? I keep replaying your face when you're distracted, your mouth when you're listening. The way you seem completely inside your own world. I want access to that world, and I don't know how to ask for it without sounding insane. I have options, that isn't the problem. The problem is that none of them are you. Yeah. And now I'm looking at the Lovers card, at these two swans facing each other, with the heart sitting right between them, and suddenly I understand why this came through as craving rather than simple attraction, because symbolically, this card is about recognition and choice. And I think what is getting under this person's skin is that you haven't chosen them yet, and that is weird for them. Because I'm looking at this 9 of coins reversed now, and normally I would read this very carefully depending on context, but here it almost feels like somebody realising that the thing they usually rely on to establish their value isn't working. Like, okay, I have this, I've accomplished this, people know who I am, people know what I can do, and you're just living your life. That's it. You're not sitting there deliberately trying to humble this person. I don't even think you understand how much you're doing. There's something about you that feels emotionally occupied already. Not necessarily with another person, just occupied with yourself, your plans, your thoughts, whatever you're building, whatever you're healing, the little private world you disappear into. You're not standing around waiting for somebody impressive to arrive and make your life interesting. Wait! Okay, that's actually the problem. Because I think they're accustomed to being the interesting thing. They walk into certain spaces and people notice. Maybe it's money, status, appearance, confidence, connections. Whatever this person has, they know it has an effect. But with you, they can't tell. And that uncertainty is driving them crazy. I could take you somewhere incredible, and somehow, I feel like you'd be more interested in whether I remembered what you said 3 weeks ago. I could give you something expensive, and you'd probably look at me like, why? What am I supposed to do with you? Because I know how to make people want what I have. I don't know how to make you want me. Oh, yeah, that's different. And honestly, I think this is where the physical craving gets stronger too, because touch would answer something they cannot get answered intellectually. If you reach for them first, if your hand stayed there, if they moved closer and you didn't create distance, that would tell them more than all of this analysing they've been doing in their head. Because they don't want politeness from you. They want evidence. Tiny evidence that they affect you too. And I keep getting this almost ridiculous frustration from them because every obvious strategy seems wrong. Show off too much, you'll see through it. Come on too strong, you might pull away. Act detached, and apparently that just means they go home thinking about you even more. So what do you do when you're used to having leverage and suddenly there is none? What happens when money doesn't guarantee it, charm doesn't guarantee it, Access doesn't guarantee it, attention doesn't guarantee it, because now I'm wondering what this person thinks they actually do to become unforgettable to you. And I think they've decided the answer is information. Not information in a weird way. More like, they're paying attention. Because now the moon is here, and look at this card. Everything about it feels like trying to understand something you can sense, but cannot completely see. There's this figure sitting inside the curve of the moon, almost protected by it, and that immediately makes me think of that private world of yours again. They can see pieces of you, they cannot see all of you, and apparently that has made them start collecting the pieces. Wait, you've told this person something really casually before, something small, maybe a food you like, a place you wanted to visit, something you hated as a kid, a random opinion, a song, the way you take your coffee. Some stupid little detail that you probably did not assign any importance to whatsoever. They remember it, like, remember it, and I don't think you know that. That's what's funny. Because outwardly this person may be very smooth about you. They may even appear distracted sometimes. Busy. Completely normal. Meanwhile their brain is apparently like, you don't like when people interrupt you. You get quieter when you're uncomfortable instead of arguing. You laugh differently when something actually surprises you. You say it's fine when you absolutely do not think it's fine. And when you're interested in something, your whole face changes. Okay, that is a lot. But the moon makes sense here because they're trying to read what you don't explicitly explain, not because they think you're deceptive. I think it's because you don't narrate yourself for people, you just are. So now they're noticing what gets your attention and what doesn't, what makes you open up, what makes you retreat, who gets the relaxed version of you. And yes, I think they're finding reasons to be around you a little longer. Nothing invasive, more like, oh, you're going to be there? Maybe I'll go. Or, somehow the conversation keeps lasting 5 minutes longer than it technically needed to, because they want those moments where you forget to be aware of them. That's when they watch your face. That's when they learn you. And the physical thing is getting mixed into this now too, because they keep imagining these tiny accidental distances disappearing. Your hand beside theirs, your shoulder close enough that they could feel your warmth. That moment where eye contact lasts just slightly too long and neither person explains it. But wait, this is actually more interesting. Because I don't think they're only learning you anymore, they're using what they've learned. They have started changing how they act around you based on what they think you actually value, which is making them weirdly self-conscious, because now I'm looking at the 7 of Coins reversed, and this is almost funny in this context. It feels like somebody asking, am I doing too much? Am I not doing enough? Is this working? Why is this taking so long? Like they are suddenly evaluating themselves through your eyes. And I don't think they normally do that. They may change something small before they know they're going to see you. What they wear, how casual they act, whether they mention something they accomplished, or deliberately don't mention it because they're afraid you'll think they're showing off. They type something, delete it, type something else, then somehow manage to send the most normal-looking message imaginable after spending 15 minutes thinking about it. Okay, that is adorable and slightly ridiculous. Because this person is trying to appear effortless while putting an absurd amount of effort into appearing effortless. And the 7 of Coins reversed has that restless quality here. They want a response. Not necessarily a huge one. They just want to know whether any of this is landing. I complimented you. Was that obvious? No, that sounded too rehearsed. Did you notice I remembered that thing you said? You probably noticed. You notice everything. Why did I say that like that? Oh my god. Yeah. This person is not okay, and I think part of the reason is that you respond differently to substance than you do to presentation. You notice when someone is actually present with you. When they're funny without trying too hard. When they listen. When they're competent. When they're kind when nobody is watching. That seems to impress you more than whatever this person could place on a table and say, look what I can give you. So now they're trying to figure out how to let you see the real version without making the act of showing you the real version become another performance. That's the trap. And physically, I don't think the fantasy is even as dramatic as you might expect. They keep imagining permission, you leaning toward them instead of away, your hand touching their arm while you're talking. Your knee brushing theirs and neither of you immediately moving, something tiny that says yes, you can come closer. But wait, there's another side to this, because if they want access to that softer version of you this badly, eventually their mind has to ask, who already gets it? Who gets the version of you that relaxes completely? Who gets the late-night conversations, the stupid jokes, the unguarded face? And I don't think they like not knowing the answer. And I think that's exactly where the jealousy starts. Not jealousy like, who are you talking to? Where are you going? It feels quieter than that. More like they see you smile at your phone, and suddenly their brain goes somewhere they absolutely did not give it permission to go. Or you mention that you're busy this weekend, that's all you say. And immediately it's, busy doing what? With who? Why do I care? I have no right to ask that. Yeah, and now I'm looking at the King of Cups, which is interesting because this card is so emotionally controlled. There are feelings, a lot of feelings, but they're contained. And that feels exactly like this person. They could be standing right in front of you, completely composed, while internally having an entire conversation about somebody you laughed with for 30 seconds. The funny thing is, I don't even think another person is necessarily the biggest threat here. Wait, no. It's your peace. That's what they're competing with. Because even if there is nobody else, you still have a life you seem perfectly capable of enjoying without them. You have places to go, people you care about, things that occupy you. You disappear into your own day, and somehow do not come back looking like you were waiting for their attention. And I think that is genuinely intimidating to somebody who is used to knowing the effect they have. They can't offer themselves as an escape from a life you hate. You don't seem to need escaping. So whatever they offer has to actually be better than the peace you already have. That is a much higher bar. And this King of Cups energy is making me feel like they're trying very hard not to show you how much that realization affects them. I could just ask you out. No, that sounds too obvious. I could ask what you're doing this weekend. That sounds like I'm checking. Maybe I should just tell you I want to see you. Absolutely not. Why does that sound like a confession? Okay. Meanwhile, physically, they still want some reassurance. Not ownership, reassurance. A look that lasts. You choosing the seat beside them, your hand landing on their arm without thinking. Something that tells them closeness would actually be welcome, because that's the part they cannot purchase or negotiate. And I think your silence has forced them into a situation they don't encounter very often. They might actually have to risk hearing no. Which is wild when you think about it. Someone who can arrange almost anything, access almost anything, solve almost anything, has finally encountered something they cannot obtain through effort alone. Your choice. So what happens when the one thing this person wants most has to be freely given? And I think that is where this gets more vulnerable than they intended, because now the Queen of Cups is here. And this card feels completely different. It's not about proving anything, it's emotional receptivity, being cared for, being known without having to earn the moment first. And suddenly, I'm wondering if that is actually the part this person has the least experience trusting. Because when somebody has money, influence, success, whatever version of having a lot applies here, people react to that. Of course they do. People become nicer, more available, more interested, and after enough time, I think it becomes difficult to separate. Do you like me? From do you like what happens when you're close to me? Wait. Yeah. That's why you bother them so much. Because you don't give them an easy answer in either direction. You're not impressed enough to make them feel safely wanted. But you're not dismissive either. You're just looking at them like a person. Which sounds simple, but I don't think it feels simple to them at all. Because if you eventually choose them, they might actually believe you mean it. And if you don't, there's nothing they can hide behind. No better reservation, no bigger gesture, no amount of success that can turn a real no into a real yes. I don't want to have to give you something first. God, that sounds terrible. I just mean, I want to know what it feels like when somebody reaches for me because they wanted to, not because I arranged something, not because I made their life easier, just because they wanted me close. Okay, that's actually very soft, and now the touch thing makes even more sense, because when they imagine holding your hand, or you touching their face, or you leaning against them without thinking about it, I don't think they're only fantasizing about physical contact, they're imagining something spontaneous, something they didn't have to manufacture, your body answering a question their mind cannot stop asking. Do you actually want me here? And there's something else about the Queen of Cups that feels important. She's open emotionally, but she isn't chasing. She isn't pouring herself out just because someone wants access. And that feels very much like how they experience you, which may explain something confusing. If this person has ever suddenly gone colder with you, busier, more professional, more controlled, maybe right after a moment that felt unusually close? I don't think that necessarily happened because the attraction disappeared. I think it may have happened because for 1 second, they felt how much they actually wanted you, and then they panicked, not dramatically. I don't think you would necessarily see panic on their face. It's more like they suddenly become very interested in work, very interested in being busy, very interested in keeping the conversation about literally anything except the thing that just happened between you. Because now I'm looking at the Three of Cups reversed, and in this context it feels like somebody trying to pull themselves out of emotional closeness before they reveal too much. Like, okay, that was enough. Back up. Act normal. And then they act so normal that it becomes suspicious. You know what I mean? The conversation gets shorter. Their tone becomes more practical. Maybe they take longer to respond. Maybe they stop giving you those lingering looks for a while. And they tell themselves this is helping. I'm just going to focus. I have things to do. If I stop thinking about this, it'll calm down. Sure. Except now they're not seeing you as much, so their brain starts replaying the last time they did. Your voice. Something you said. The way you looked at them when they were talking. How close you were standing. Wait, there's something about your scent too. Perfume, cologne, shampoo, whatever it is. Something sensory that catches them off guard after the fact. And then they're annoyed because they were trying not to think about you. Okay, so now avoiding you has somehow created more thinking about you. Great plan. And trying not to look at you? That's even worse. Because then they know exactly where you are without looking. They're hyper-aware. They hear your voice somewhere and immediately register it. You walk into the room and suddenly they're concentrating way too hard on whatever is directly in front of them. This person is fighting for their life, trying to look unbothered. But here's the thing. I think what makes your energy especially addictive to them is that you don't perform attraction. You're not constantly trying to reassure them that they're desirable. So if you do give them something, a softer look, a genuine compliment, you move in closer first, your hand brushing theirs and not instantly disappearing. That tiny thing becomes enormous to them because they believe it, they trust it. And I think we're reaching the point where pretending not to care is becoming more uncomfortable than admitting that they do. Wait, yeah. Something has changed. This doesn't feel like them only imagining what they would do anymore. I think they're starting to think about how to actually create a moment with you. Not some huge dramatic confession, but a real opening, a reason to get you alone, a reason to stay 5 minutes longer, a reason to finally find out whether all of this is happening on both sides. And I think they're trying to figure out exactly what that moment could look like, because now Judgment is here. And this card, especially with that huge eye right in the centre, feels like the point where pretending you don't know something becomes harder than admitting you know it. They know they want you. That part is not really up for debate anymore. The question is what they're going to do with that information, and I don't think the move is as flashy as you might expect from somebody like this. Their first instinct may be something impressive, somewhere expensive, a gesture big enough that there's no confusion about their interest, but then they remember who they're dealing with, you, and immediately it becomes, no. They'll think I'm trying too hard. Maybe just ask them to stay for a minute. Maybe ask them something real. Maybe tell them I remembered that thing they mentioned. God, why is this so difficult? Okay. I think they're rehearsing. Not necessarily actual sentences word for word, but the opening. How do I get from normal conversation into something that actually means something? How do I create time alone without making it obvious that I created time alone? How do I let them know I'm interested without dropping the entire weight of this obsession on them all at once? And judgment feels like they know they cannot keep living entirely in implication. At some point, something has to become visible. Maybe it's a message that starts practical and then suddenly becomes, actually, are you free later? Maybe they linger when everyone else leaves. Maybe they ask you a question they would never ask casually. Or they finally look at you long enough that both of you understand the conversation has changed before anybody says anything. And physically, yeah, they imagine getting close enough that the air changes, their voice getting quieter, you looking up at them, their hand close to yours, that split second where they could touch you, but they're waiting. Because here's the ridiculous reversal. This person may have all the confidence in the world everywhere else, and still be hoping you give them something first. Barely anything. You move closer. You don't break eye contact. You touch their arm. You say stay. Something tiny. Because your tiny yes would mean more to them than somebody else's guaranteed one. Wait. There's something underneath this that I wasn't expecting. They're not only thinking about getting the moment anymore. They're thinking past it. Past the first touch. Past finally knowing you want them to. They're imagining what happens if you don't disappear afterward. What happens if you actually stay? And apparently stay means something much bigger in their head than I realised. Because now Temperance is here, and this is such a strange card to get after all of that intensity because it's calm, balanced. Nothing is being chased. Nothing is being forced. And I think that's what they're imagining with you. Not constantly trying to impress you, not wondering whether they said the right thing, not calculating how much of themselves to show. Just existing beside you. Wait, this is almost embarrassingly domestic. They're imagining you in their space when nothing particularly exciting is happening. Ordering food because neither of you feels like cooking. You laughing at something from the other side of the room. Sitting close enough at a table that your knees keep touching. You falling asleep beside them while they're still awake. And apparently that image does something to them. Because it isn't glamorous. Nobody is watching. There's nobody there to be impressed. It's just you seeing the version of them that comes home tired. The version that doesn't have an answer yet. The version that maybe gets irritated, distracted, quiet, and Temperance feels like this fantasy of finally not having to be on, like your presence somehow lowers the volume. I want you to know me when I'm not impressive, and I hate how much I want that. I want to know if you'd still look at me the same way. If I had nothing planned, if I didn't know what to say, if I just sat next to you and let you see me. Okay. And that's why the touch keeps coming through. Because now your hand on them means something completely different. Your hand on their shoulder when they're stressed. Your fingers finding theirs without a reason. You leaning against them because you feel comfortable enough to do it. That touch says, you don't have to perform right now. I'm still here. And I think that is what they're craving underneath everything else. Not just your body close to theirs. Your comfort. Your trust. Access to the version of you that doesn't need to be entertained every second. But this part matters. Their fantasy does not become your responsibility. You do not owe somebody intimacy because they've imagined it beautifully. And I actually think temperance is important for you too, because it keeps this from becoming about abandoning your own balance just because somebody wants you badly. Fantasy is safe. Fantasy lets them decide how you respond. Reality doesn't. Reality requires them to show you something real, and then allow you to choose what you actually feel. So if they finally stop hiding behind all of this control and let you see them, what are you really being asked to choose? Them? The lifestyle? The chemistry? Or whether the person underneath all of it actually belongs in the peaceful life they've become so obsessed with entering. And I think that's why this last card is so interesting, because now the Queen of Swords is reversed. And immediately I get this feeling of somebody realizing they cannot think their way into being chosen. They cannot strategize this perfectly. They cannot say exactly the right thing and somehow guarantee the outcome, and neither can you. Wait, that matters. Because I don't think you're being asked to analyze this person into perfection either. You're not supposed to convince yourself that somebody belongs in your life just because their feelings are intense. You still get to notice what they actually do. How you feel around them. Whether their attention feels good when it becomes real instead of imaginary. Whether the person underneath everything they possess is somebody you genuinely like. Because we started with the lovers, and now I understand why. This whole thing has been about choice from the beginning, not conquest. Not, they want you so badly, therefore you should want them. Choice. And I think that may be exactly what this person secretly wants from you anyway. I don't want you to pick me because you're impressed. I don't even want you to pick me because I made it impossible to say no. I want you to look at me when there's nothing else happening, and still want to come closer. I want your hand in mine because you put it there. I want one look from you that I don't have to question. Just one thing I know is real. Yeah, that's it. Because they could probably get attention. They could probably get admiration. They could probably find somebody willing to enter whatever beautiful life they can offer. But that isn't what has them stuck on you. You're inside your own world. You're not standing outside of theirs asking for admission. And somehow that made them want to be invited into yours. That's the obsession underneath the obsession. They don't just want access to your body. They want recognition. They want that moment where you see them underneath the confidence, the money, the polished version, all of it. And they see you too. Actually see you. And maybe something happens. Maybe it doesn't. That part still belongs to reality. But I think the most important thing is that you don't have to leave yourself to find out. You don't have to become more available, more impressive, more seductive, more anything. The thing that caught this person in the first place was that you were already occupied with being you. So stay there. Inside your own life. Inside that quiet little world they keep trying to understand. And if they finally come close enough to offer you something real, you get to decide whether you reach back.